Okay, very good. Hey, Rolf. I think we are in time, almost 7. We always start a minute early, yeah, like German precision. So first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And I have to admit, you're a real hero. I grew up watching you and watching Bjarne Ries, watching Jan Ulrich, watching Team Telekom. I think you were a huge influence on my cycling, and I got really excited. And I'm sure you heard this a lot of times, but the show you had put up for us in June every year was just amazing. And I'm really, really excited to speak to you. And yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Well, thanks for having me. It says a lot about my age. If you say, like, when I grew up, I've seen you riding and racing as a professional. So that tells everything about my age. So we have to switch back in our minds now 2 decades to understand like that shifting was still on the frame. And, you know, there was disc brakes were just invented for cars. So that's the period that we talk about right now.
It's only 3 years, my wife said, yeah, that it's only 3 years between us. So when I say grew up, I mean more as a cyclist, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. I just want to acknowledge you as well, because you had so many achievements in your career. I think you rode 10 times the Tour de France, 15 times Roubaix, 14 times Tour of Flanders, Giro Italia, 6 times the Vuelta. That's a lot of kilometers, even in racing. So that it's just an unbelievable achievement. You were in the winning team with Jan Ulrich in 1997. You were in the winning team with Bjarne Ries in 96. So that's just an amazing career. I just want to start with you at the beginning of the career. So who introduced you to cycling, and what are your first memories and first inspiration you had to get into the sport?
Well, it's really strange. My father always liked cycling, and he would have loved to race, but there was just no money after the war. So he was born in 1933. So we always went to the local race, the local circuit race. And actually they had this beginner's race with people with no license. And I was 13 years old and I participated there, but nobody would believe I would do it. So my father actually went fishing that morning. And I went there with my mother with kind of flat tires and blah, blah, blah. So I finished 6th, but the prize for being 6th was like 24 yogurts. I think they were outdated. But anyway, I thought, like, so that's probably the best I can ever do in life, you know, make something out of my passion with riding my bicycle. And then I joined the local club and started racing when I was 14. And it took me quite a while to combine school. And then later on, I left school when I was 16 to learn a job like mold making, tool making, till I really turned pro. That went quite a long time down the road and via the national team. But that was the start, really, like with 20 yogurts outdated, that I thought, like, this has potential. Let's do it.
Very good. Who was your hero in these days when you were riding little Rolf on the bike and you were sprinting against your friends? Do you had anyone in your head to kind of motivate you, and you were playing to be him? And what was the inspiration?
No, it was actually more the local guys, to be honest. The guys who then kind of like ripped me off by selling me jerseys for 80 German marks when the value was probably 40. But I was looking up to them, so of course I thought it's an honor to wear their used jersey. But there was more like I found my way into it, and there was never really a plan when I was 18 or something to become professional. It was just the thing that I raced, that I went there with my father and my sisters and my mother all in one car, go to the race, liked it, and then it was really step by step. And then of course, like the first time really thinking about it, that probably was because of my former coach there, Hennes Junkermann, who was 4th in the Tour de France himself and was a really, really good pro and really looked after us when I joined this team, Olympia Dortmund. And that was probably the first time when I really thought, okay, you know, maybe it makes sense to try. But I always set myself a limit. So I tried for 2 years. And if it doesn't really work out, then I better go back and study machine engineering, which I was supposed to do then, and find a proper job. But probably Junkermann and the setup there around Olympia Dortmund was probably the key to become professional.
Very cool. You turned pro in 1991 with Helvetia, and then in 1993 you joined Team Telekom. And obviously the most important question there is, how did you cope with the Magenta, some call it pink, around 2,000 men in Lycra and in pink jerseys? How was this? Did you like it?
It takes a little bit of time to adjust to it. And if you remember the first jerseys, they were not so, let's say, offending. It was using that color so much. There was a lot of There was a lot of white. There was a lot of black. Well, actually, it looked a little bit like there was you rode on a freshly tarmac road, and you got all these black sprinkles on your jersey. It wasn't really that pretty. Then later on, they defined that magenta color as the color of the company. And in general, it was nice because you different than the other teams. This is like so remarkably different than everybody has a blue jersey. So it was kind of nice. Also in the retrospective, of course, you have this memories that I went to the girls team of T-Mobile in 2003 at the Grand Prix of San Francisco, because the day before, riding around there as an adult in Magenta, I get a lot of like thumbs up at the red traffic lights. So that was the story about San Francisco, and it was really obvious that it was so different riding as a male in Lycra in Magenta through San Francisco that I decided to go with the girls jersey, which was not the perfect cut for me, but there was mainly black.
Very cool, very good story. 1996, you were in the team with Bjarne Riis and Jan Ullrich, and obviously Bjarne Riis won. What memories you have of the year 1996 and the Tour de France?
Well, we have to start in the winter 95, I think, because that's when Bjarne joined the team. And you also have to remember in 95, we were only selected for the Tour de France very, very last minute, because sporting wise, we didn't qualify. So there was a lot of doubt about our own quality. There was like no really self-confidence. And then in the winter 95, we had this team meeting with press present. And then Bjarne Riis was sitting downstairs while we were kind of like sitting up on the gallery. And they interviewed him. And then he said, like, I'm going to win the Tour de France next year. And we kind of like had to close our nose to not start laughing upstairs, because it was the era of Miguel Indurain. You remember, it was when Miguel Indurain won 5 years in a row, and nobody seriously believed that we, with our experience, with our history, could really beat Banesto and Big Mig. So it was kind of like a learning process. But, if Bjarne has something, then it's this kind of like convincing people, buying people in to get people excited, enthusiastic about it on the bike and off the bike. And he really turned that team around by giving us tasks within the races. So just for example, in May before the Tour de France, we had to chase down a breakaway group with Tony Rominger, who won the Giro, who was a world hour record holder, with Miguel Indurain, with a few time trialists, which we would never think about doing it or even being able to doing it. And we did it. So that gives you confidence, that builds you up. And then in 96, we just kind of like exercised in what we were learning over the year.
Fantastic. So he was really the leader of the team, and that really gave you all somebody to look up to. Fantastic. Yeah. And then he had an unbelievable tour. Obviously he came out as the winner, and the next year he wanted to obviously win again. But then there was this red-haired boy from Germany who had a good shape and won then the tour. So how was it riding with Jan? I think that was one of the biggest moments, obviously, in cycling. That was a bit like Boris Becker won Wimbledon, and whole Germany was behind Team Telekom and Jan Ullrich and the whole team. It was super exciting. So how do you remember 97?
Also, like roll back into 96 there, because honestly, already in 96, Jan was stronger than Bjarne. Jan could have won the tour in 96, but nobody knew that. So, fair play. Bjarne was our captain. Bjarne was in shape. Bjarne for sure was tactically a different level in 96 than Jan has been. So Jan took that year to learn, but pure physically, Jan was stronger in 96 than Bjarne was. So now going into 97 with Jan being second, and like just to sum up the success of 96, Bjarne won, Jan was second, Eric won the green jersey, and I think we were second in the team classification, and we won 5 stages. So we were dominating, and that kind of like woke up whole Germany. So 96, we had the peace and freedom to go into the tour with not being bothered from anybody. 97, there was already huge focus and on the team and about the team, or of course about Jan, and then it was quite impressive how he handled that. Basically, he wasn't thinking too much about it. He was just doing what he's good at, riding his bike. And then also, of course, we all remember that stage to Andorra that Jan won, but yes, where Bjarne gave him that free ride, because we started with captains. to say, okay, let's see, you know, you never really know what's going to happen. You can break your collarbone on the first day and it's game over. And when Bjarne gave him basically the okay to attack and to ride away, that also needs a lot of, you know, strength and mentorship from Bjarne's side to say, it's okay, I understand you are stronger, you can win this Tour de France, so go ahead. You know, the next generation is basically in the first row, and then we pulled it off. Of course, for us as domestiques, these 3 weeks were terrible, because either we had a mountain stage, then we had to hang on as long as we could for Bjarne and for Jan, or it was a flat stage, and then it was for Eric to try to win stages. Yeah. So in modern days, you always have one big focus. So Team Ineos controls the race to not lose time on the flat stages. We tried to win those flat stages, and that was pretty demanding. And so we came out of the tour really, really cooked and really tired, that's for sure.
Very good. Do you remember the day Andorra? Did you hear it on the radio? Did Jan say it on the radio? Did he say it to Jan personally, or you spoke over the radio? Everybody heard it? Because I remember Jan was on the climb. It was the final climb, and he was leading the group. And he looked around, and then he dropped them again, looked around, dropped them again, and so on, so on. It was going forth and back, and then it seemed like he was going off, yeah, and then he was gone. But it was just an amazing moment of cycling, or Jan Ullrich's career that he was. But how was that, and how was it in the evening after that? How was Bjarne Riis about the situation?
I think everybody was pretty relaxed about, because you know, Jan in the national jersey of the champion of Germany, he won up there on the big ring, and it was so obviously how strong he was. It was so obvious how strong he was. So I think it was a big relief to have the jersey, to be in the driver's seat, to kind of like control it, and to know with Jan and with Bjarne, and of course, like, you know, never forget somebody like Udo Bölz. We have enough strength to control it from here, because Jan was just a different level. Except that one day later on in the Vosges, where we nearly lost it really towards the end of the tour, but otherwise we were always in charge and control. So it felt like the natural result of what we all thought would happen, that Jan is the strongest guy in the bunch.
Yes, I think there was this famous sentence created from Udo Bölz. I really love that German television was obviously speaking to them, and I think Jan was on Udo's wheel, and he couldn't really hold the wheel, and it was, as you say, it was in the Vosges, and it was kind of a climb, and then the reporter asked him in the evening, what encouraging words did you pass on to Jan Ullrich during the day, and he just said, torture yourself, you pig, or something like this, just a swearing at him in the deepest possible way, just to say, listen, you have to give it now, you're going to win the tour. If you let them go now, it's going to be over. So you were there at that moment with him?
No. We had as a team, we were really under pressure. So what happened was, like, Festina straight away sent the guys out into the breakaway. So what they did was, like, in every group in front of the peloton, they had one rider. And then, of course, it was obvious what would happen to say Laurent Dufault and Richard Véran would wait and then try to bridge to the next group, next group, and put the pressure on. So, you know, we had those guys jumping, and we were not, like, interested in somebody who was 24th in GC on 30 minutes down to catch him back. But we knew the danger, and we knew it would happen. And then we just couldn't really react. Bjarne had a terrible day that day, I remember. So it was literally just Jan and Udo in that chasing group when Virenque attacked, and me and Hepner somewhere in the cars. So I had a quite okay day, and I think me and Hepner in the car fighting like crazy, trying to hang on, and because we understood how difficult it is now if you have a group of 40 and only the yellow jersey alone with Udo, and a long way to go. That was a tough course. We had to ride full gas. What you usually do is, like, you drop and you stay in the gruppetto. So you just ride home in the time limit, done, wait for the next day. But that day it was clear to us, saying we have to come back here. So then we were all, like, chasing super hard, taking high risk in the downhill. And ultimately, after the last climb, there was still a long way to go to the finish. I think it was Colmar, not really sure. But it was a long way. And then Christian Henn made it back, Riis made it back, Hepner made it back, I made it back. So then it looks at the finish line like, oh yeah, Telekom really, really got it. But it was touch and go to lose the tour. And I'm pretty sure it's not only what Udo said, But if you look at old pictures from Udo Bölz and his face and his grimace and everything, yes, it's so impressive that, you know, you would rather die before you let the wheel go. That's for sure.
Very good. How is it when you work as a domestique? So you go back and pick the water bottles, you help him with the jacket, you bring him the food, and you're just trying to shelter, you're in the wind all day long. So it must be just amazing if you ride for hours and hours and you support your team leader. You must really believe into Jan and you know his capacity to win the Tour. So what was motivating? What was going through your head every day?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, being part of a winning Tour de France team is just, you know, once in a lifetime if you don't have the talent yourself. And that's what you realize in the first 2, maybe 3 years. So what happens is, like, and this is remarkable, because nobody turns professional as a domestique. Everybody who turns professional is a winner. So, you know, but from then on, you have to go through different developments. So every team signs new riders because they believe it might be the next Tour de France winner. It might be the next, you know, world-class sprinter. It might be the next time trialist on that planet. But then it turns out, not really. He's good, but he's not good enough. And then you have to make the own decision. So what do I want to do? Do I stop because it gives me no pleasure to help somebody else and to be part of this whole professional cycling circuit? Or do I keep on chasing my dream to win? And then I'm 7th, I'm 9th, I'm 5th, I'm 12th. And that is not interesting for professional sport. So if you fade out after 3-4 years, that's it. So if you want to have a long career, you have to make choices, but you also have to believe in what you do. And you're not riding 40,000 kilometers just to have a job and, you know, just to make a couple of €1,000 and stay in the bunch. So you have to believe in what it is. And of course, with winner types like Jan, like Eric Zabel, it was always fun. I mean, we always won our races. We always, you know, like enjoyed like the team itself.
Fantastic. I want to take you to the year 2003 because I think that was a special year for you for the Tour de France. I came to Dubai 2002, so 2003 was the first year where I watched the Tour in Dubai. I remember I watched it with customers, tried to explain the newbies into the sport. What is all the jerseys about? The yellow jersey, how can somebody have the yellow jersey and not winning a stage and so on? It was quite exciting. And obviously there was stage, the stage to Morzine, yeah, which was a super long stage, 230.5 kilometers long. It was a very, very hot day. And I think you or somebody decided for you that you have to get in the breakaway more or less straight away from the start. You had Paolo Bettini with you, and you started a breakaway. And tell us about this amazing day for you at the Tour de France.
Yeah, it was a little bit crazy. As you know, like being 75 kilos, not really being a pure climber, to join that breakaway, I think was five climbs, and then yeah, Morzine is also not known to be all downhill. But anyway, we thought like this is the first weekend with big climbs. Usually what you see in these days, at least what happening is like nobody really wanted to have the jersey and nobody really wanted to control the race. So the first weekend always is a big audience and gives you a lot of media attention, but there's also a fair chance that you make it to the finish line. Few years forward now, think about Linus Gerdemann. His ride into the yellow jersey, winning that stage and having the yellow jersey was exactly the same situation. There goes a bigger group. They don't let you go on 20 minutes, but they, you know, keep you just controlled. And then you have a fair chance to make it to the line. And I thought like, okay, if I'm out there with not pure climbers, I can probably hang on for quite a long time. Then Richard Virenque decided, unfortunately, to attack from the bunch, bridge to us. And then I had a problem, of course. Dropping him was literally impossible. Even so, I tried to attack him. That was pretty impressive what the guys in the peloton said. Like they heard it on radio that, you know, me with 75 kilos were into the last climb, attacked the 7-time mountain jersey winner of the Tour de France. I wanted to impress him. I just thought like, okay, you know, I claim I'm super strong. And then he probably catches me. And then I always ride next to him on his bottom bracket to show strength. Well, it didn't really work. It worked actually till 5 kilometers to go from the top. And then he dropped me, but I still finished second. So overall, it was a success. But of course not what I was hoping for to win that stage.
Yeah, you were third overall, and you got the polka dot jersey. You won the jersey. The rank was in yellow, and then the next day you had the polka dot jersey up to Alpe d'Huez.
Yeah, true. Well, I still have the general classification as a printout at home because it was Virenque, Armstrong, Aldag. So from my point of view, they could have ended the tour right there. I would have been quite happy with that. And then I think the next day I made it from third GC into third last GC because really that stage in the mountains took so much energy out of me. There was nothing left. I think we started into that stage, which ended then in Alpe d'Huez on a fourth category climb, and I was dropped in the climber's jersey. I was dropped and was fighting back, and legs turned a little bit better, but ultimately I made it with the best climber, having the jersey for the best climber in the last group up to Alpe d'Huez. So I think personally I probably hold a record for the slowest time up to Alpe d'Huez in the Tour de France climber's jersey, but it didn't really matter. I enjoyed that day. It was really, really fun. Of course, nobody ever expected that. So if you see now how everybody is styled, everybody has a painted helmet, everybody gets a special bike and handlebar tape and shorts with polka dots. I just got the jersey. Here we go.
Nobody was prepared.
It would not last for more than one day, but it was still fun, and of course, it always gives you good memories.
Very good, fantastic. So the same year, 2003, as well, you had a fantastic achievement in Paris-Roubaix. You were 15 times in Roubaix, and this year you became 9th, and you were in the breakaway with Dario Pero. How was this? How is riding Roubaix? How is it to do 260 kilometer of distance in one day and about 60 to 80 kilometers over cobblestones? And you must really love that race because you participated 15 times.
Yeah, every year, and it was really like the only reason I would have extended my career would have been to do another Paris-Roubaix and another Tour of Flanders, because for me those are the most beautiful races to do. I mean, Roubaix you really have to be lucky, but Roubaix you have a chance to win. So to compare, if you see Liège, Bastogne, Liège, which is climbing in the Ardennes, the best will always be in the top 5, yes, or win. But in Roubaix, if you see so many winners, unexpected winners, you see Matthew Hayman from Mitchelton Scott, who broke his wrist 6 weeks before, only trained on the trainer, and then still won Roubaix out of a breakaway. There was Buxted. There was so many guys winning out of the situation. So there's a chance in Roubaix for everybody to win. And if you would interview 200 riders, I tell you 80 would think they could have won today. Mm-hmm. They just got bad luck, wrong moment, wrong this, wrong that, because you still believe you can do it. So it always, it is this race that you say, if I have this one day in my life, I have a chance to win it. And of course, it's epic. There's nothing else than riding on these cobbles on high speed. As long as you're fast, it's just really, really nice and really, really fun. If you start to slow down, it's absolutely terrible because you have to think about riding on cobbles. If you're fast, you kind of like, you bounce on top of the cobbles. Yes. As soon as you're really slow or in the rain, you basically ride against the cobbles. Mm-hmm. And that really slows you down. That really hurts. And that really kind of like that you just can't make it forward anymore. So the key is you have to go fast and you have to stay on the gas. And, but if you do it, it kind of gets you in a flow. And then it's you probably don't believe it, but it's really fun. It's really fun to do it, and I loved it. And I could have done it probably 5 times a year, and wouldn't complain about it. So it's a beautiful race.
What was special preparations? You had more bar tape, you had different tires, how did you prepare for such a day?
Yeah, in the beginning, I tried a lot. So like the first year with a Swiss team with not really a lot of experience with Helvetia La Suisse, I just kind of like rode. And next day, I couldn't really open the glass of marmalade because my fingers were swollen and I had no power and anything. So next year, I thought okay, I do cross tapes on my fingers, with tape to give it more stability so they're not bouncing that much. What I forgot was between the tape was still some skin. So I had blisters everywhere. Literally, I had no skin on my fingers anymore. So that wasn't really a good idea. And then from the third year on, I just managed to find like the right pressure on the handlebar. Yeah. So you don't have to, if you hold it really, really tight to try to get control, you will cramp on your lower arms. You can't, hold it for 60 kilometers on cobbles and for 260 kilometers in total, like really, really tight. If you keep it too loose, it's too bouncy. So, you're like everything like smashes on each other. So you just have to find the right pressure, the right position. You turn the handlebar a little bit up. So you would tilt the levers a little bit. So you ride more on the levers. And then, tire pressure is a big topic on Roubaix. In our days, we kind of like went from 21 to 23. Now Roubaix is literally on 30 millimeter tires with going low as 4 bar on tire pressure. So it really, really changed over time now. And right now it's pretty comfortable. So there's definitely no need for rock shocks or any kind of suspension system because the tires give enough of that as long as you ride fast.
Very cool. Are you still in touch with the old gang, like with Eric Sabel, with Udo Bölz, or Jan Ulrich? And who would be the fastest guy now on the ride? Are they still riding, the other boys?
Yeah, well, definitely Eric. I'm not really sure if he ever reduced his training. He just kept on going, and he has a wonderful place on Mallorca where we live. He only lives about 35 kilometers away from me. And sometimes I really think I hate him for living so close to me because if he rides, he just passes my house. I like from my office, I look over Lake Möhnesee, it's called, and it's beautiful. But then he passes there, waves up to me. I sit at the office. He does one loop around the lake, comes back, waves again. I'm still in my office, and I know he rides another hour back home, and he has done 100 kilometers while I just sit on my butt on my chair. Trying to follow up with whatever emails. So I'm really close with Eric. With Jan, well, we know he had some personal problems, so I prefer to completely leave him alone for now because I think he has to find his balance back in life, and that's fair enough. We should all give him that time. And well, as I said, like I was in touch with Udo Bölz when he announced he would do the Cape Epic in South Africa because it finishes on the place where I live. With Klöden on and off. So yeah, a couple of guys I'm close with, but also to be fair, a lot of guys just disappear. Mm-hmm. It's probably what it is in normal life as well. Like you end your career and then you have different focus and you move and that's it. But like the core group who is still in cycling, of course, that's still fun to hang out with. And if we share a hotel at some races, then for sure it ends up at the bar.
Yes. Our Zoom participants, they can send in questions. So please be reminded, if you have any questions for Rolf, please send them in. I have one already from Wesley. What's the best day on the worst day on your bike, which you had in your career?
Well, the worst day on my bike was literally when Fabio Casatelli died. Remember the Tour de France? And I remember that downhill. And there was no real stress. We were just coasting down there in one line. Then I see like a Spanish guy from Kelman, like 5-6 position in front of me, starting to panicking, like clicking his foot out of the pedal and like to that next left corner. And I thought, okay, something is wrong. So we all kind of slowed down. Then you can't come around that corner and you see him lying there, which wasn't really, really nice to see. You just don't want to see things like that. What made it really, really bad was like they came in the race and I was dropped in the group then with Armstrong, and they came in the race and told us that he died on the way in the hospital, onto the hospital, and that's then you start to put everything in question. What you're doing, is it worth for people to lose their lives? Because remember, he had a newborn baby at home that he'd just seen like 3 days or something before he left to the tour. So that was a terrible day that you just start to question. And like the next day we neutralized. It was super hot in the Pyrenees. We neutralized that day. There was kind of like that combination of those 2 days were by far the worst. The best day, it's like, I mean, it always hurts. The best day is probably when I scored my best result, because ultimately, I never finished the bike race without pain. So what is the best day? Then the best day is probably the same pain, but a better result than usually. So some of the better races that I've done, Tour of Flanders, where I finished 7th, I think in 2000 when Steffen Wesemann won. We're really, really good as a team because Wesemann won, and I think Clear was 4th and I was 7th. That was fun, and that was definitely one of my better days in a monument of cycling, being in the top 7.
Fantastic. Do you still keep some of the old bikes, or how do you give them away, or you keep some of these bikes you had from the past?
Well, in principle, we gave, every year you give your bike after the season, you give it back, and then you get a new one. But I kept a couple of bikes, and but I have to say, in the last years, I was always like so busy, and then I had this idea of like, now I go for a little bike ride. Then I realized something is not working, and what do? I take one working part from another bike and put it on that bike to make it working. So I probably end up with having 10 bikes over the years, but I think this might be one functioning at home, but that's about it. So I have a lot of parts, I have a lot of frames, but full functional traditional bike, then it's not too much left, to be honest.
I want to go to the second part of your career as a Director Sportive, and now you have worked for many good teams, MTN Quebeka, and so on in Quickstep. You have been with HTC High Road. I think it was for me one of the most amazing teams in the past years, together with Tony Martin and Mark Cavendish, and you have worked really with some amazing riders. So I just wanted to see, obviously you've been on the other side, you've been a rider, and you've been now a Director Sportive. What did you take from other Director Sportives you had in the past? What did you take on for yourself and to teach your young riders when they come to start riding? And what are things maybe you don't do as much anymore, or how is this working for you?
Well, what I tried to do when I shift sides, and it was a very short transition period, and that was quite difficult because I rode with Telekom till the end of 2005. In 2006, I've done some TV stuff and like some VIP stuff for Telekom, but already after 2006, it was clear that there would be a change in the management. So from then on, I kind of like swapped. But my problem was, of course, I was riding with a lot of those guys. They were roommates, and then next year I would be their boss. Mm-hmm. So that's not super easy. And what I always try to do is then like learn from the bad things rather than the good things. So what I always try to think back wasn't like the great victories we had, because obviously then it worked out well. There were always like the biggest defeats that we had, and try to transfer, the problems that we had into something good. So say, where can we change things? How could we do better than we did back then? And that kind of like was for me the key to say, well, what were the problems with Telekom that we have to change to make it a successful team? I mean, in 2006, I think they only won 17 races. Then we took it over. I think the budget was nearly cut back to half, and we won 55 races. And 2 years later, we won 85 races with not even half of the budget that we had on rider paycheck than what we had with Telekom. So for me, it was never really about like the money. It was never really about like buy more stars. It was give people a fair chance, see the weaknesses of people and the individual strength, and work on that to say, you will never make a sprinter winning the Tour de France. So why bother? Why would you even try? So make him the best sprinter, make the time trialist the best time trialist, and whatever comes with it is nice. But there was like, I think always what we tried to do, and what was super important was the group of people. And that's what I also figured out. It was HTC was this really unique group that you say, okay, we had super young doctors from Hamburg there in the clinic that they stepped up with all the past problems with doping in the sport and everything. They say like, okay, everybody's running away. This is a chance. The athletes need help. They need, they need a proper new way. How can we help? We have, ambitious coaches, Sebastian Weber, young guys who are just willing to work 24/7, super motivated, and do things in a different way. So I think the group of people really, really made the big difference on HTC High Road.
What do you think is the biggest difference today with technology? Is it the power meter obviously changed a lot, and obviously the race radio and all these things. What do you think is really a positive aspect there, or do you prefer races when you don't have a radio? How do you see all the technology coming into the sport?
Well, I think it's a natural thing. I think that's in the human interest to get better. Otherwise, we would still kind of like have this wooden stick and try to hunt the dinosaur living somewhere in a cave. That's against human interest. I think cars getting better, everything gets better. So I think it's natural that you invest into cycling. The steps now getting definitely smaller. So there was a time till 2007-8 where people were just like more training and more this and more that. But now technology did take over. So there were power meters, but not really used that well. So they were used, but what are you doing with the data? So the knowledge now it's much bigger than it has been. All this, what Sky created, marginal gains, became kind of a phrase, but it's true if you see time trial suits. If you just look at the jerseys from what happens from there till now, you know, how arrow they are, how different cuts they have, how different fabrics they have. I mean, we had a jersey and it was like, good luck. It was good enough for Tour of Flanders at 6 degrees and rain. Then you would wear 3 layers of undershirts, and it was good enough to ride a 40-degree mountaintop finish. It was still good enough. Yes. Now you literally have 6 different jerseys with cooling fabrics, with aero, you know, with warm and thermo, and that's just an example. So I think it really did develop big time, and it's good to see. And like, I mean, unless you're really traditionalist, but then you go for this Strade Bianche Gran Fondos, where you have to ride a bike that's 30 years and older. But otherwise, I think super interesting, man. Every time I come to your shop there in Dubai for the race and see the wheels hanging there, and you know, see what's out there, and I have to admit, it also makes it much easier for me to ride out and to still hit an average of 33. That's kind of like what I always try to target. In the past, I did it with 36 spokes and with an aluminum rim, but now I need to have at least, you know, 80 millimeter high carbon rims and an aero frame and this and that. But it helps, and it's so obvious that it helps. And I just like speed, and you know, free speed is always fun to have.
Not true, absolutely. Who's your favorite rider in the current racing scene, and who do you enjoy most working with? It's a question from Janet.
Yeah. Well, I think the guys who still who in technology, but who are thinking old school. So, for example, you know, Philippe Gilbert. So because he has his traditions and, you know, he has his own mind, you will not really change him, but he uses technology. So it's not really that he refuses to go on carbon wheels on the classics, because he said, no, I need to have my aluminum rim because I did it for 15 years. So, but I still like these characters, these guys who race because they like to race. They don't like to race just to hit numbers. They like to race because they want to win. They probably super happy if they give you some extra pain. Nicky Terpstra is one of those guys. You see him, you know, like sometimes or the other riders in the bunch, they're really happy to have him as a teammate. But they hate to race against him, because every time, you know, it slows down, Nicky goes. Every time it hurts, Nicky puts extra pain on it. And those type of riders I definitely like a lot. If you see now, of course, the very young generation, Evenepoel, everybody talks about him. Yes. Van der Poel, everybody talks about them. But they're real racers. They don't race by numbers. If you've seen what Van der Poel did in the Amstel last year, I mean, you know, it left me with my mouth open. Yes. I've never seen anything. So he was a domestique to chase down the breakaway. Yes. Then he was a lead-out guy for himself, and then he was by himself, and nobody came even to his bottom breaker. So that was, and that needs this mental strength that I really, really like on these riders.
I cannot remember a race like this. I've never seen a performance like Amstel from Van der Poel, when he was just chasing everyone down and just riding past them and just winning. And obviously there were big names out there. Yeah, there was not that he just passing anyone. That was one of the most incredible performances I've ever seen. I can't remember anything like this. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that must have been like a young Merckx or somebody. Of course, Van der Poel will not win 5 times the Tour de France, But for what he's doing there and then you see it, he wins mountain bike World Cups, he wins, cyclocross World Championships, and he wins, classics on the road. That's really amazing. And he seems to be a nice guy. I was, again, we're back to my age, racing against his father. So, I mean, if you look at the family, of course, from his mother's side, it's, Polydor. So there comes his strength for, longer climbs and everything. And his father was, a cyclocross, won Liège, and so on, and was pretty fast. So he has the genes from both sides that should make a perfect bike rider.
Wow. Yeah, very good. This answers almost a question. We have one question from Paul. Who are you up and coming riders for the next 4 years? Anybody you have on the radar yet to watch? Anyone you feel like is somebody who is not recognized yet from the media, who is a big talent coming up?
Well, I think that's really difficult now, and that is also a little bit the problem because they are so obvious. That with all the scouting systems, teams spend fortunes of money to have people just traveling to under 23 race. Everything is reported and so on. There are no real secrets for me anymore. So that Bernal would be that type of rider. Everybody knows that for a couple of years. So he's not really by surprise a Tour de France winner. That Evenepoel is a super talent. Everybody knew that. So that's a little bit the pity, because it's not that you really can go out and say he's going to be the one and nobody ever heard about him. What I would do if you don't have the budget and if you can't really compete for, to get those guys on your team, what I would do is really look into mountain biking. Because I think, if you look back into history, Cadel Evans was a mountain biker. Mm-hmm. It takes him a little bit of time to adjust to strategies and to kind of because they're really focused on themselves. They're not really team players, but once they do it, I think in mountain biking is a lot of potential that is not discovered, and I think even potential like at least stage race winners, maybe even Tour de France winners. Everything else you can find on Pro Cycling Stats, on Cycling Quotes, wherever you look. There's just no secret anymore. So that's a little bit the flip side of technology, that everybody knows everything.
That's true. Yeah, there's no surprise anymore. I think as well, sometimes obviously when people know the distances and they're connected to the cars, I think the instinct of racing. So if you know the person is, 50 seconds behind you, or is he 5 minutes behind you, or whatever, I think this is sometimes a bit ashamed that it's so controlled. And I had the pleasure to be in the car a couple of times, and it's quite amazing when you see how controlled the races are, how you negotiate with other teams. Can I have one of your riders to chase the guys down and so on? That was quite amazing how you connected with the other team cars and other teams to negotiate these things. I wanted to speak about the team. Obviously, a lot of people are in Dubai now inside, and they are in quarantine, and we're using indoor trainers. Is the team, and are you using Zwift?
Yeah, well, I think I have a straight run for 30 days now on Zwift. So every day it became a routine for me, because we also have a complete lockdown in South Africa here. So nobody gets anywhere except grocery shopping. So yeah, I know Eric Min, the CEO, and one of the founders of Zwift really good, because he's a big supporter of that Canyon SRAM women's team that I work as a sport director. So he joined our camp in Spain. So he was part of it. I rode outside with him, and he explained me a couple of tricks and how this, we all know the start is super difficult on Zwift, and when to use the power-ups and everything. So it's pretty interesting if you really race there, that these little tricks, of course, are super important to be kind of successful. Actually, I was 2 days ago, I was 9th in an 8 category race, which kind of like was absolutely on my limit. Absolutely. I can only do it on the flat part, because now it's like 78 kilos. There's no chance to stay with the guys on virtual racing on the climbs, but on the flat, it's kind of all right. You have to accept, no matter what it takes, you have to be in the group and hang on. So if you think like, okay, I leave a little gap and I come back later, that's the algorithm there, and they know that is kind of really in favor of the group. So attacking is not a good idea, and trying to cross to another group, jump across, is not a good idea. You will never make it. So the drafting that is set in the algorithm for the group is so big that you just, no matter what it takes, even if you think I can only do 5 pedal strokes, you better do this 5 pedal strokes and stay in the group and hope the group's down, because once you're off, you never get back on. So it takes a little bit of time, but you can get yourself into it. I prefer outdoor riding. There's no question, but it also can keep you really, really fit. I mean, if I see my VO2 max, and if I see how I brought up my FTP now, I think my FTP now is 347 or something, so around 350 watts, coming from really like nowhere. So I think I improved it like really, really a lot. Wow. And I always try to go the hard way, so I don't use a ventilator here, even if it's 30 degrees, because there are some studies that like going in the heat, training in the heat, really gives you a big advantage. So I know that, for example, like Boson Hagen, to prepare for the World Championships in Qatar, he trained basically on Swift in the sauna, in the heat. So has something to do with the blood and stuff like that. So there is some theories behind it. It doesn't make you perform that well. So if you really want to perform, you put 3 ventilators in front of you and cool you as much as you can. But for me, it's more like, try to get a training effect and something. But yeah, like I said, like every day, every morning, at least I do 1 hour on Swift.
Wow, that's cool. And how about the team? You have team meetings and they train together? You make some group rides with all of the riders from the team, or everyone is on its own right now?
Well, right now we split them into different events, because there are races. There's even prize money up there for races. So we split them, and we have a little bit of the problem with the timing, because we have riders living in the US, we have riders living in New Zealand, yes, and riders living in Europe, and to get them all together is quite difficult. But of course we give everybody like a look after each other and give ride-ons, but then we schedule them with the kind of like heads up a couple of days before for certain races, whatever suits them. And we have 3 of the Swift Academy winners in the pro peloton in our team. So they qualified via Swift for pro contract. And that goes crazy. So to my understanding, like the NTT under 23 team does do the same on the men's side. And I think in 2019 they had like 60,000 applications to do it, and so it's just a huge growing market, and it's really interesting. I mean, in these situations, of course, they're definitely a winner of these prizes.
Yes, we had a lady, we have a female team here, Wolfi's Contessas, and we had one of the ladies, her name was Yvonne, and she was riding in this category, and then she got selected with 3 other girls, and she was going for the camp, and it was a super experience for her. There was another lady who was chosen to go there, but obviously an amazing achievement to be selected, even from, as you said, like thousands of people who wanted to be in the team, and she was one of 3. And it was kind of an amazing experience for her, she told us. Yes, very good. Do you feel it's more stressful to be in the car, or did you feel it was more stress to get ready to race and so on? Or what do you prefer?
Yeah, I think it was a process. So when I was Neo Pro, it was not really stressful. It was all about excitement. And in my very first professional race with Helvetia La Stress, in the sprint, I lost my front tire in the sprint. So about 20 meters from the line. So I made it through the line being 6th or something, but I nearly strangled myself in the tire. So I had like half a page of picture hanging there with in between the tire, the wheel, the fork with my head. And so then, thinking about it, I thought, well, things could go really wrong here. And then I decided the edge for myself to say, if I would have died today, my parents probably would be sad, but at the end they have 2 more daughters, so they probably get over it, and it would be worth it. So, you're kind of like, I live my dream, and if you pay the price, that's it. When you're then like 35 and you have a house and, your first child goes to school and you don't really want to die anymore, how can you stay competitive? It's the experience. So you don't have to take certain risks, because after that left corner comes a long straight. There's no panic to take, but you kind of like reduce the risk by gaining more experience, and that's how you stay competitive. So first first I would say like I wasn't really stressed about racing at all the first years, never at all. Later on, it is kind of like, you know what can happen. You've seen a lot of crashes and you kind of like back off a little bit. So that changes. In the car, yeah, you always have this feeling you want to do more, you know. Yeah, if you could push the pedal for them, you want to push the pedal for them. You can't. So, you know, you can only do, and what you never want to do is kind of like transfer via the radio any kind of panic into the peloton. Because, you know, literally everybody says the same. If you know in 7 kilometers comes a left corner and there comes crosswind, everybody is like, go to the front, look after the captain, go to the front. So it's not like, you know, and it doesn't really make things better if you just start yelling at them or something. You know, you have to have a good team meeting, but then you live with the consequences and you just trust your riders that they do the right thing. So panic or really overexcitement is not really a good thing. And that's what I remember when I was racing. I hated it when in the time trial, the people behind me honked the horn and made a chaka and kind of like, you know, like telling me, yeah, come on, and you can do it and go faster. That would not make me faster. That would just make me angry and not focusing on my ride rather than, you know, focusing on the idiot behind me. So I never really liked it. I know other people do like it and they get goosebumps and being cheered about. Like, I never really liked that from behind the car. If it's not super important and you can suck off the atmosphere, that is super nice. If you remember the individual time trial up to LTS, so that was like nearly 1 million people out there.
Yes.
And like for me, there was no reason to go as fast as I could because just had to go from A to B and that was it, and save energy for the next day. But that was one of the most amazing stages. That's probably how an Ulrich felt, a Pantani felt, an Indurain felt when they came up first, because everybody knows your name. You know, they have a start list, they look at it, and then you get really, really excited by enjoying this excitement, but not really panicking or stressed. It's just never really good in bike race to panic.
Fantastic. I think a great insight into the life of a sports director is that movie Chasing Legends. And I really love that movie because it was obviously an amazing team. I was very happy they were on Scott bikes that year and they had just an amazing tour. Mark Cavendish and Tony Martin, Bernie Eisel and everyone. And you were in the movie together with Eric Zabel and yeah, it was just an amazing movie. How do you remember how this was? It was 2009 Tour de France, and you had some amazing days when you split the peloton, and I think the 9 riders were ahead of the all the HTC got away in the breakaway in the Normandie. Can you tell us a bit about that day?
Yeah, which is really interesting because not sure if you've seen the cycling news articles lately when Contador was expressing his feelings about like Armstrong coming back. And he picks specifically that day that the team didn't look after him, and that Chinkepi was a friend of Armstrong, and that's why, you know, he knew what HTC would do, and that put me back into the time. I thought, you know what, we absolutely would not bother about Contador or Armstrong or GC or anything. It was just like, okay, we want to win this stage, and that's what we're gonna do. And then Eric Zabel was always a guy in the upfront car. So he was driving half an hour before the peloton, and then was telling us, like, listen, there comes a corner. It doesn't really look like because it's close to the coast, but it's covered, but you can't see it, but there's crosswind. So if there's a chance, and then we just took it on. So it's like complete nonsense who talked to who and what and if and how. And that's how we just managed to say, okay, it's far out, but we have by far the strongest team for these conditions. And why not take it on? And then luckily we finished it off. So Mark won that stage, and it was super impressive. Yeah.
If people haven't watched that movie, Chasing Legends, they should really try to get a copy. It's really something. I think it's cycling history. Really, really good documentary. If you could spend, I have 2 more questions. So what would Rolf 2020 tell Rolf 1999 when turning pro? What wish you would have known turning pro? What would you tell him?
That cycling does not only come from cycling. That's what I learned right after my career when we tried to make these small changes, and we started with core stability and functional training. So you know, like just a little bit like I'm 1.90 meters, so I'm pretty tall for a bike rider, too tall, with like 75 kilos in the tour, sometimes 73. So pretty light but tall. So I'm really not really stable by nature. But all these accelerations, all these changes in rhythm, in tempo, needs a lot of strength in your body. And that's what I only realized, unfortunately, once I stopped. And we had this fitness trainer with us with HTC, and he was offering management lessons in the morning at 7 in the morning. I said, okay, just to have the same feeling like the riders, pre-prep and this and that. We do it, and then I realized I could probably attack easier when I retired than when I was a rider by just doing something else and just riding your bike. And nowadays was as many kilometers as you can do, do that and go for it. So a training camp on Mallorca, a regular week, was 1,300 kilometers. So it was an average of 200 a day, and there was one rest day, and there was 100. That's always what Eric Zabel used to say, like, yeah, rest day is 100 kilometers. That's, that gets the out of your legs. So usually it was 180, 200, 220, 100, 180, 200, 220, 100. So that was like what we have done. Retrospectively, I would say like complete nonsense. Just have more recovery and do some stuff that's really important for your body. That's, but can't change it anymore.
Very good. Very good. My last question really is, if you could spend one day with a famous person, dead or alive, who would that be?
Probably Mandela, because I have this. I'm close to South Africa, and we had this trip to Robben Island where he was arrested in prison for more than 20 years, and I was in his personal cell where he lived on these 3 square meters. And then if you see what he was managing, how he could control himself getting out, being in the power position. So literally he could have, take big revenge on everybody when he got out of prison, but he didn't. He really tried to create this rainbow nation, not really saying like it's going really well right now here, but I mean, him as a person, as a personality, and knowing some people who talk to him. So we had contact with the national rugby manager when the Springboks won the World Cup. So he actually did the tour with us on Robben Island. And he explained when Mandela came into the cabin on the half final there and talked to every player, knew every name of every player, and how he united that team. Super impressive. So that would be the person that I would probably say that's somebody I would like to.
Very good. I have a few more questions. We call them burning questions. It's just quickly, you give me quickly an answer. Yeah. Socks, low or short socks?
I have ugly legs, so long socks.
Okay. Chamois cream, yes or no?
No. Modern inserts, they are so good. No chamois cream. Okay.
Tattoos, yes or no? And if yes, where and what?
The what?
The tattoos. Yeah. If you have tattoos. Yeah.
Yeah. I will not show you because they're really up. That was also part of like a California training camp where my colleagues decided to have one, and then I was so bored that I said like, how much is it? And they said $60, and they said, I said, oh, that's nothing, so let's do it. So I ended up with a devil on my arm, like a comic devil, a cartoon devil. Yes. And next day, 6 flat tires, nearly crashed, had a screw through my rim. So, and it was raining the whole day, so all bad luck. And I said, of course, how stupid can you be? I have a devil on my arm. So I went back and put an angel next to it.
You jinxed it, and now you're okay. Very good. Very good. Riding long, steady, or short and hard?
In the past, long and steady, really enjoying everything, nature. No, short and hard.
Very good. Clothes, you rather go short and jersey, or you go one piece?
With my body shape, you can cover up with shorts and jerseys, so I prefer that.
Very good. Shaving your legs, you still shave or no?
Just for events. I'm just I don't even shave my face, so why would I shave my legs? In principle, if I do on the Cape Argus here, the one-day event, yes, and then regularly I would shave my legs for that kind of stuff.
On a Sunday morning, you lay in or you get up early?
I don't get up early, but I would still try to do my ride. But I can't understand people riding at 5 in the morning.
Okay, we do this a lot in Dubai. Unfortunately. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I thought
win
for a while. I thought I would be the only guy doing sports.
Yes.
Because when I started, everybody else was back. But I only figured that out when one time I went out with my gardener. I said, come on, we have to go for a ride. I said, okay, when? 6 o'clock. I said,
Yes.
Isn't it getting dark? No, he said, in the morning. I said, no,
Yes.
I'm not riding at 6 in the morning. So
Yes.
we did. And then I figured out there were hundreds of people jogging and biking, which I never see if you start at 10:30 because it's just getting hot. But I'm definitely somebody trains late.
Very good. The wind is your friend or the enemy?
In principle, it's my friend because I know it cracks all the people around me, and that gives me a kind of psychological advantage.
Tire pressure, high or low?
Now low. In the past, pretty high. It always like this that you think you get a concussion when you hit a hole. That always make
Yes.
you think you're fast. But now knowing the number, now it's pointless.
For brakes, disc or rim?
Disc if I have a mechanic who services for me. So if I have a trusted bike shop, like if I would be in Dubai, I would definitely be on disc. Here right now, I have a rim brake bike, and I basically prepared my own bike at home with disc brakes, but mechanical disc brakes.
Yes.
And mechanical shifting for the simple reason: if you travel, you know, you won't have leakage, and if something is not working, you just put in another cable. But even that is disc brake, but mechanical disc.
And last question: if you go for holiday, you go for cycling or you go to the beach?
Probably don't go to the beach. I probably go hiking with the family somewhere in the outback.
Mountain. Okay, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Wolf, thank you so much. I think we really spent a lot of time now this evening, but it was a great conversation and really took me back into the early days of my cycling career, watching the tour and everything. So, and I really want to acknowledge you again for this. Yeah, I think you did a lot for the sport, and I think you still do with the team. And it's always nice when you come to Dubai that we can catch up, and you're always super helpful, and it's just fun to be around. And so thank you very much. You're a real legend of the sport for me. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed. And we have next Tuesday, it's Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, it's Matteo Trentin, the European champion, second in Harrogate. It's a great pleasure to have him on the show. So thanks for your time, and yeah, good luck for the season. I hope we see you soon back in action in the team car.
Well, thanks to you. Say hello to Theo. I worked with him at Quickstep. Super nice guy. Also, so I think he has good stories to tell. Wish you all, to stay healthy and to get out pretty soon on your bike. It's always impressive how you can, keep it together there in Dubai and how motivated you guys are. So I hope to catch up live somewhere, Wolfi, and keep on supporting the sport. People like you are super important. I think that's why it's a pleasure for me to do the thing with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This really means a lot. Thank you.
And of course, your family.
Yes,
without you, it goes nowhere. So
very good. Yes, thanks to Gabi. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, enjoy the evening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Rolf.
Thanks for listening and joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.